Maybe I'm too tall. Okay, so the other day, sorry, I look like I just took off my bonnet, but so the other day I made a video about I'm about to upload it. It's something along the lines of like, watch this if your inner child is stuck in a trauma response. And it's, or like, I was at the eye doctor and like this woman, bro, she was just like so passive aggressive, and like it got me into the trauma response of like childhood, where I would have to like make myself smaller and kind of just like the most I could express myself is go to my room and go cry, right? Like I couldn't be like, hey, this is unfair, like, hey, I don't like the way that you speak to me, or like, you know, or even just like not saying anything, but not crying after, you know, like not having to give into that energy. And like I made some other videos kind of talking about it, where it's essentially like this video game where you can either decide to play into the video game that they're portraying, and it's like they are predator, you are prey. And I kind of made this example of like, they're fire, I'm earth, and like you burn their, you know, I'm letting them burn my earth. Or it could be, you know, something that would have left me more empowered energetically, you know, where I wouldn't have left and felt like crying, would have been like fire against fire. And I kind of imagined myself as like her being a butt, right, as she was being, and me being like a fire breathing dragon, where you just like the dragon can like, and I don't literally mean like murder, but like but like the dragon could literally flick its finger and like you're dead, right? But it's that kind of energy of like power. But I could have like thrown fire back at her, right? But that's just like not in my nature. I don't prefer it. I prefer peace, right? And I'm like, God will take care of you. God knows why you're built like that. That sounded so anyway, but then I'd seen this octopus drawn on this card, and I was like, oh, and I imagined like underwater. I forgot the other option, right? It's either you make yourself smaller to this bigger person, because she changed the power dynamic. It went from like, oh, I'm here to help you because I'm an eye doctor and I'm here to help you figure out like, you know, what to do. And my eyes are pretty gray. So like I get an essence of her frustration. Maybe she thought that like I was lying about my vision or something. I don't know. But like she was getting frustrated. This is like my third appointment. For like a recheck, and I was like, bruh, I don't know, like these glasses ain't it. And she was like, I don't know what, like, why are you here? Because like what I prescribed you is right. And I was like, bro, like you gonna tell me what my eyeballs be seeing? Like, okay. But I'd forgotten that, right? So there's like, you can be the smaller one, or you can be the, you know, match that level, or you could be neutral. Being that octopus under the water, the worst that fire will do to water is like evaporate it, right? But I was thinking about it more now, and yes, like of course it makes sense that like I went into that trauma response of like making myself smaller, because that's what I had to do to stay safe emotionally as a child, with an emotionally unstable adult that like you're welcome for my burps. Sorry if that bothers you. I know some people, you know, like the whole, like, some people don't like hearing people, like, munch on food. I know some people are like that about burps. So I apologize if that bothered you. But I try to appreciate every aspect of our bodies. So hopefully you can join me in my appreciation. So I just derailed myself. Oh, right. So obviously it makes sense that like I went into that trauma response of like energetically making myself smart, right? Because I could have just left that room and been like, oh, that, well, she needs mental help, right? Like she needs therapy. Like I feel bad for whoever's in her life, to have to deal with somebody like that, where like, you know, the moment maybe they get slightly frustrated or something doesn't necessarily go exactly the way that they want it to, because clearly she was like frustrated, right? Like maybe she felt like I wasn't, like maybe in a way almost like undermining her, like being like, you're not doing your job correctly, you know. Maybe she kind of took it a little, I don't know what her reason was, right? I don't know if she took it personally or if she was just tired of seeing my face. I don't know, you know. I think it's a pretty cute face, so I don't know. I like staring in the mirror sometimes, you know. You should too. And if you don't, keep staring at the mirror till you like it. that's what I did. So, right, of course, it makes sense, like, trauma response, right? Because this person, like, I'd seen this person become violent before, in childhood. I mean, I don't mean this doctor. I don't know her like that, but I'd seen this person become violent before with other people, and now as an adult, I now know that, like, this person would have never become violent with me, but I didn't know that then, because I'd seen this person, like, that was like a thing available within their responses, you know, like when you're using characters in a video game and it's like certain characters have certain like power things or whatever, you know. I don't play video games, so I can't think of an example right now, but even just like what, like in Mario Kart or something? No, like in Mario where like certain, I don't know, where certain characters, because of the way they're built, you know, like they have certain, what's the word, I was gonna say profession, like they're really good at one thing, right? But derailed myself. So like I knew that was like something that person could do, that they could become violent. So my brain didn't know that I was actually physically safe even when they were being a butt, right? I didn't know that. So my brain went into like little rabbit, like survival mode of like, okay, I might die, right? So it was like, okay, like just pretend like you're fine, go to the room, go cry, right? And then they'd come back and act like I didn't just bawl my eyes out and like was terrified for my life 2 moments ago, right? Like 5 minutes ago, like narcissistic, like borderline psychopathic type energy. But so that makes sense. But then I was thinking about our first appointment where we were talking about, I brought up animals or something, because there is this like little study thing where scientists are just starting to realize that they're sentient. Like they thought they were these little like low-key like wind-up toys that they just did things, like they were programmed like a little robot, like instead of, because they did little tests and they like saw like octopi would like avoid certain situations that made them previously uncomfortable that made them uncomfortable in the past, or you know, like certain things like that, or like would traumatize these like certain animals. I forgot what animal it was, and then they had given them like anti-anxiety meds and like it worked on them. Like it sounds really messed up because it is, but my brain was just like, that's so dumb. Like, really? Like, I've literally seen an ant carry another dead ant. And that was like, that sounds weird when you first hear it, but like I'd previously heard that ants, like you don't want to just kill an ant somewhere, especially if it's like on your bed or something, because other ants can smell the smell of another, like they have amazing smell. Like maybe it sounds kind of gross, but one time I was eating candy and then I spit on the ground because I don't know, maybe I was eating a piece of plastic by accident, and then I saw ants like gather so quickly to the scent of the sweetness. It was so weird, but apparently ants can smell other dead ants because they will go pick them up, and like I guess they have their own little graveyard or something. I don't know. I don't know like where it is. Maybe it's like underneath somewhere, right? Maybe they have a space where they put them all. Maybe they eat them. I don't know. But from what I've heard, they like take them and they take them back to like their little colony. And I've literally seen an ant like carry another ant. So I don't know. It's just like an extra little confirmation, for lack of better words, in my brain. Like obviously animals are sentient. Like it's always been a duh for me, but reading this I was like, what the heck? And I was like talking to her about that, and then blah blah blah. I don't remember what else I said. And then at some point she was like, wow, like you are very empathetic. And maybe I like semi brought it up, and because she had said it more so in like she agreed, but she brought it up again like after, because I'd said it earlier. And in thinking about that right now, I was like, obviously trauma is in play. And in the video when I was talking about that, when it had just happened, and like how to talk to your inner child, and like, you know, you can't just say like, oh, you're fine, because clearly the child is not fine, right? So it's like really figuring out, why is it that you feel that way, to really see where that child is, like where's your mentality, right? To really realize you're always playing a video game. So you're playing this video game, but you don't have to be. And that's why, like, environmentally, physically, you are safe. How can I make you realize and like look around you to realize that you don't have to play the video game that you're looking down at? Like I had made an example of like reading a book, that you become so invested in the book that you forget what, you know, your surroundings are, that you stop reading the book and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot this is what reality was, right? But Sorry, I've said this so many times over, but I'd like start and then I'd like go into another little tangent. But so obviously trauma is a thing. That has to be a play in it. But so in the video I was like, you either went through trauma or, you know, like childhood trauma, or you maybe had like some kind of important relationship, an important person to you. You had a relationship with somebody that was important to you. There we go. It's wording it weird. That caused some kind of like trauma bond, right? And then that caused you to start playing that video game of like making yourself smaller, and that became your natural response. And so I'd said like those are pretty much the only two, but then I was thinking about how she had like re-mentioned that I was empathetic. And I think maybe I wouldn't have really thought of this if that hadn't been brought up during our first appointment, because I guess you don't necessarily have to go through trauma. I think it's the fact that, because what I was going to say was, even if you haven't gone through trauma, just being an empathetic person, it can be very easy to fall into that. And that may be kind of like easy for you to accept, but like breaking it down even further, it's not just like, oh, you feel things, right? It's easy for you to tune into, right, like empathy, it's easy for you to tune into other people's emotions, but I wasn't tuning into her anger. I was tuning into her video game. When somebody speaks to you like that, they expect you to play into their video game of becoming small. Because that's the game we're playing, right? That's what she just initiated. That's what they prefer. Obviously, most people wouldn't just prefer somebody to like throw back at them, right? That would just like make it right. They want power. In order to give them power, you have to make yourself small, because they're not bigger than you. They're a paper tiger. I think I mentioned that in the video too, right? Where like, you think it's this tiger, but if you really looked at it, you'd be like, oh, you're just a piece of paper. Like, you can't do anything to me, right? My brain had like attuned to the reality that she was attempting to create. And again, I don't just want to completely disregard the fact that that is like my natural trauma response, but I wanted to mention that I guess you don't necessarily have to have gone through trauma, though if you are and always have been a very empathetic, like sensitive individual where you feel very intensely. You don't have to go through as much to feel as much. And I heard somebody describe sensitivity, because people will hear sensitive and they're like, oh, you're so sensitive, like it's a bad thing. No, like it's literally, it's a descriptive word. I think it was Gabor Mate. If you haven't heard about him, he's very interesting to listen to, so I suggest look him up on YouTube. I'm sure I think he's got some books out. He definitely has got to have some books out. But learning about the self, he's like a doctor, a physician for like a family physician for a while, but then like he went into like mental health and like how everything comes to, it's really interesting. But he was talking about like, you know, he really broke down sensitivity in a way that I never really thought of expressing in this way, but it makes so much more sense. So it's like, he said your shoulder, but we're gonna use my knees. So, this knee, if you were to just like touch it, you'd be like, okay, you know, you just felt like a little touch, right? Versus if this had like a 3rd-degree burn and you were to use the exact same pressure, it would be excruciating. It's not about anything good or bad, right? Like, oh, you're so sensitive. Like it's not. It's not about being like a crybaby, right? Because we like associate it with that. Because it's so much easier for us to cry because we feel so intensely with less, right? more receptors are open. Because this top layer of skin is meant to protect that under layer that's more sensitive, that has more receptors. It's not that it's, oh, you're such a crybaby, blah, 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 right? You just have more receptors. You don't have to go through as much to go through the same trauma. Somebody could go through something so much worse physically that you had maybe like nowhere near that, right? But you experienced the same situation energetically, right? Like your body reacted in the same way, even though it wasn't as bad physically, right? Because like my childhood, I'm like, well, for a while I was like, it wasn't bad, and then like learning what a good childhood actually is, I was like, oh, yeah, I was wrong. It was not good. Yeah, no, I didn't know you were meant to be like at peace in your childhood. Oh, that's so funny. But you know, I'm grateful for everything just because I wouldn't be here being able to explain things like helping other people figure out what's going on in their brain if I hadn't gone through that. Slowly transforming the world one trauma at a time. Turn our pain into power. I was gonna say pleasure. Alchemizing it, right? Changing the video game, because you have the power to change the video game. But okay, so yeah, I just wanted to explain that sensitive thing, but yeah, if you're an empathetic person, especially if you have been since childhood, you were a lot more likely to be like traumatized by things. Ow. Confirmation. Jesus. Sorry, Jesus. Maybe that's Jesus. Ow. That like hurt. I've never had a pain like that. Usually it's like in my ear or something, but it was like I mean like in my ear, but it was like somebody put like a little needle like, ooh, that hurt. Ugh. Does anybody else's ear just like dislocate? And it's not both, it's just my right one. Right, so if you've always been empathetic, you're a lot more susceptible to trauma. But even if you didn't endure trauma as a child, right, or at least like severe trauma, but even just being like told no, right, like you could like read into that, and like that's why it's so important to, if you're the parent of, or you just like are close to somebody who's very empathetic to, especially somebody who hasn't healed. So that's why like I go more toward like kids, right? Because they haven't really like learned what their emotions are trying to tell them, because your emotions are just your spirit, your body, your soul, whatever you want to call it, communicating to you. In order to not feel like you're going insane, you have to translate it into words, right? Because humans like understanding things. We feel insane if we don't get it. So it's turning it into words in order to understand it, in order to know what to do, especially if you're trying to form relationships with other people. You have to know how to express that, and you can't just make them feel what you're feeling. So words. But yeah, I guess that's mainly what I wanted to bring up, that like, because my two main things were like, you either went through childhood trauma or you went through, again, like some kind of very traumatic experience. But I guess you don't necessarily have to, and I guess I just wanted to like put that out there, even if you're just generally a sensitive individual and you're like, well, I've never had any trauma, right? Because the way that I was able to break down like what I was meant to do was by looking back at that trauma and being like, oh, okay, well, I responded this way because I felt physically unsafe then, even if I wasn't actually unsafe. Well, I didn't know that then now, but I know that now. I didn't know that then. That's how I was able to break down how to help myself, because I was like, okay, well, that, you know, that kid didn't know it wasn't physically safe. So now I can realize, okay, I felt physically unsafe because I haven't differentiated and realized that my environment was safe. I haven't identified that. So if somebody's being rude, passive aggressive, whatever, it doesn't equal physical and safety. So I don't need to be in that fear, like, I'm crying, right? I don't need to make myself smaller. I could just be like, okay, that person needs help anyway, right? In that more empowered state, but I can be neutral and not, throw that energy back at them, because that's just not my vibe, So, yeah, those are the two that I could think of, but I was like, just in case you don't have that experience, right, where you didn't go through something particularly traumatic and you don't have something to like relate back to, because that was mainly what I was expressing in the video. Like, just think of something, like that's what helps, right? But even if you were able to get something from the video, because I did talk about that whole video game thing, like, you could just choose. I still gave like an opening to figure out how to get out of that energy of automatically putting yourself in like victim mode, right? And like making yourself smaller. I don't mean victim like, oh, boohoo me. I just mean like literally like you've turned yourself into like the prey, right? Because you're like giving into that game that they haven't insinuated they want to play, right? And again, conscious or unconscious, but like that's energetically what's happening. It's a back and forth dynamic of a game that's happening. Although I did express, I feel like enough for people to have like had an action plan of like how to figure it out. I guess this video is for anybody that is like, okay, I figured out how to feel better, but like, why is this coming up? I don't have any trauma. I can't think of anything. There wasn't anything out there that like I could think of in my life that would have or should have made me feel that way. So, yeah, it could just be that you're just very sensitive energetically. Again, remember, you just have more receptors. It's not about being like a crybaby or, being easily angered, blah, blah, blah. It's just you have more receptors. And that's kind of a superpower, because you can like, I feel like you get out, well, logically, it's easier for you to get out of, at least identify situations that you don't need to be in a lot quicker. It's like you can like know somebody for 5 minutes and be, sometimes even less. Sometimes you could just like talk to them for like a minute or something and then be like, yeah, I don't like this person. Something just feels off, right? It's kind of a superpower if you allow yourself to realize like, I am the main character in my life. I am the protagonist in this movie, right? Like, I get to create what I want in this reality. And if that hurts somebody else, well, anyway, they're the protagonist in their life, right? Like, they can do whatever feels right to them, but I'm not going to sacrifice myself so that their movie's vibing. Like, their movie will start vibing the moment they decide that they want it to start vibing and actually decide to do something about it. But I'm deciding to do something about it. And it could be that you're the inspiration for those people, right? But you can't inspire if you're not doing what feels right in your spirit. But yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I wanted to say. I guess it's kind of it. This is just like an extra little tidbit, little clarifier of. It doesn't mean that you necessarily went through anything. It's just like an explainer of if there wasn't any trauma. It's probably just because you're so like, since you're sensitive, it's not just about feeling other people's emotions. It's feeling into the energy dynamics of what people kind of expect of you, right? Especially if they're like used to having that power over people. It's more likely to trauma. But I, just in case somebody didn't, But anyway, I think that's it. That's all I have for now. That just came to mind because like the word empathetic was just ruminating in my brain in that regard. And I was like, Again, just in general, more susceptible to trauma. But just in case you weren't and you were like, okay, but I still don't understand why I feel this way. That could be a reason that you're just, able to pick up on like, it's easier. It's not that you're gullible, right? It's that just energetically, it's easier for you to, that's just the word that keeps coming into mind, attuned to their energy, to their, and again, it's not like attuning to their anger, it's attuning to what they expect of you to be, what they want you to be, right? almost like become my chameleon, right? Play my game. And it's like, no, I don't want to. And remembering that you don't have to if you don't want to. So yeah, I feel like this video was a lot longer than maybe it needed to be, but I hope you enjoyed that. Enjoyed my little voice as maybe you're making ramen noodles or making some donuts. That would be cool. I want to know how to make donuts, but like Krispy Kreme donuts, you know, like cloud donuts, like not Dunkin' Donuts donuts. Those are like cakey donuts. I want like fluffy donuts, like mainly air, so I can eat so many that I'm mentally satisfied, you know, because you eat one donut and you're like, why am I so full? I only ate one. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. But anyway, I hope you guys have a lovely day. I hope that was at least semi-helpful. Sorry that was really long. And I kind of did talk in circles for a while, but sometimes I feel like somebody will say something and I'm like, I needed to hear it like a couple more times over to really get it in my brain. So maybe that was helpful for somebody, but I hope you have a lovely day. And keep being nice to yourself. Go drink water. Go look in the mirror and be like, wow, I am in love with you. But don't just be like, oh, I love you. You know, like that whole self-love thing. Like you don't look at somebody that you truly love and you're like, I love you. You know, we were like, oh, just look in the mirror and be like, I love you. But you have to feel it. Like, don't just say the words. Like, feel the words, you know? Imagine somebody that you really, really, truly love and care about. Even if it's just your cat or I don't know, your pencil, I don't know you know, whatever you really, you know, cherish, right? And like imagine that feeling like, wow, I love you, like you're amazing, like I'm so glad I found you, you're in my life. And then look at the mirror and then repeat it, you know. You have to do it quickly so like the energy is still there, you know. But anyway, thank you for being here. I hope you joined the little ride of this I was gonna say this video channel. What? This YouTube channel. I want to create like a little community where people get to talk to each other and like, you know, we don't get church and I don't know about any modern day spiritualist type things. So I guess we'll just make a channel for it, you know? But anyway, drink water because I know you didn't do it when I first said it. Thank you for listening to my little ADHD brain.